hopefully you can. I just got this American voice in my head saying recording in progress, and it always stops me in my tracks. So hopefully you can all see the screen. So if anyone wants to put a real thumbs up or one of those funny virtual thumbs up just to let me know that you can see, that would be brilliant. Thank you. So I'm Jackie Kemp. I know that I know a few of you, but for those who don't know me, my background is that I used to work in HR. And in 2009, I left to set up a business as a therapist. And since 2014, I've been basically merging what I see as the best from the world of HR and the best from the world of therapy. So developing people and understanding what makes us tick, to provide programs of training to support well-being, to support good mental health, and to support managers to have the skills to manage their people effectively. Because if there was anything I noticed in HR, it was that lack of skill in managers. So today we're talking about avoiding burnout. It's quite a hot topic at the moment. I think a lot of people are exhausted. And to actually be able to avoid burnout, I think that we need to understand what we're talking about. So burnout occurs when we're experiencing long-term stress, and there's been a lot of stress over the last 2 years for everybody. I don't think anybody's been immune from some level of stress in the last 2 years. And when it's job-related burnout, it means that you're feeling that stress within the job and you're feeling emotionally drained over a long period of time. Common signs of burnout are around feeling tired all the time, feeling drained most of the time, maybe feeling helpless, feeling defeated, feeling alone, that you've got nobody to turn to, feeling trapped, feeling detached, maybe becoming more cynical and more negative about the world, having lots of self-doubt, procrastination, needing a lot of reassurance, especially when it comes to making decisions, that inability to make decisions for yourself, and a general sense of feeling overwhelmed. Now, lots of organisations have put in place different things to help build resilience in their people, which kind of makes burnout an individual issue. But actually, burnout is an organisational issue. If you have a culture that enforces behaviours or that treats people in certain ways, then all the resilience training in the world is not going to help them if your culture doesn't change. So we need to focus not just on giving people the skills that they need to be more resilient, but also it means that we need to focus on what are we doing in our workplace. I just realised this isn't plugged in. Can you hear me better? Excellent. Okay, I've just realised this wasn't plugged in.
Good job, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's just as well you can hear me. I'm loud enough without it. I'm using it as well. So we're going to look at some top causes of burnout and what we can do about those causes. So looking at the organisational causes, not just the individual issues related to burnout. So the first cause, and I think it's one of the most well-known causes, is overwork. It's a massive cause of burnout, and it's one of the main causes of burnout for people. In some organisations, if you have a long work hours culture, where long working hours are rewarded, that can lead to burnout. I was talking to a coaching client yesterday, and he's currently working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. That is not sustainable. He's not burning out, but he is becoming very disengaged with the organisation, and it won't take long for him to start looking for something else. He will get to a point, if this continues, where he won't actually have the energy required to continue looking for another job, and he will potentially get to this point of burnout. So we need to be really careful. I know that in his organisation and in his industry, there are low availability of people at the moment, And there's a lot of sickness absence due to COVID and for many other reasons that are causing some of his workload issues as well. But as organisations, we need to look at what can we do to support our people in these situations. We also need to recognise that, do we have a working culture where if people are taking time out to go and pick up kids and do things like that, then it's seen as people are not as engaged and as focused. I think over the last 2 years, we've had a much more flexible approach to work, but sometimes that flexibility means that people are working evenings because they're fitting childcare in around the working day, and they're not actually getting enough downtime or any downtime. Currently, I'm working with an organisation that provides stress awareness training. Every time I do the training and I give people tools of how to look after themselves, and one of the tools is around setting boundaries and pushing back, they always push back at me and they say, but if I don't do this, then I won't be selected for future projects. They work on short-term contracts. I'll lose my job. My contract won't be renewed. That then leads to the potential for them to burn out, but organisational burnout as well. It's not just people that burn out, it's organisations as well. Just seeing the chat, someone couldn't hear. I hope that's because I wasn't, not because of this. So, what can we do to support people? We need to encourage people to take breaks. We need to make sure that they're taking those breaks throughout the year. Are people using their full holiday entitlement? How many organisations actually had to force people to take 3 weeks off in December last year because they hadn't taken their full holiday entitlement? I know there were people in the organisation that I'm working with and delivering my 12-month training with, because I have people say to me, I can't attend the December session because I've got to use up my holiday entitlement and I haven't taken any this year. So we need managers who are on top of that, who are actually managing their people's work time and keeping an eye on people's work time. We need to be realistic when we're planning. How often do you set aside 30 minutes to do a task and actually find that you're still doing it an hour later? If we're doing that ourselves, how can we help our people to plan effectively if we can't plan effectively for ourselves? So we really need to be making sure that we are promoting healthy working practices, but also supporting people by helping them to prioritise, by helping them to recognise what they need to be focusing on. I shared a LinkedIn yesterday. I love the work of Liz Fosselin, who does some really good images, and she's done one about the approach that we take to non-important, non-urgent tasks. So if you want something to make you smile, have a look at my LinkedIn for yesterday. But it's really important that we actually encourage people to take a step back and say, so are we focusing on things that are important, or are we focusing on things that are not important and not urgent, and why is that? And help people to prioritise, help people to plan, give people those skills, and give managers tools to help their people do that effectively. Also, if we're matching people's strengths to their job role, how often do we look at weaknesses and ask people to focus on their weaknesses? Why not, just for a change, focus on people's strengths and encourage them to use their strengths? And if there's something that's a weakness for somebody, find somebody else who can take that task on within their role. My weakness is most definitely numbers. Anyone who's ever trained with me, when I'm trying to work out groups, when I've got 11 people there, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. My head just goes to pop. Basically delegate that to the rest of the room. I'm a little bit, okay, I need 3 groups. Can you please organise yourself? Because my head is too much in what I need to deliver as opposed to numbers. But if we can get people to match their strengths to the job duties, if we can match the duties to the person's strengths, then we will have a far happier and more productive workforce. If we can have regular open channels of communication as well, keep people informed of changes that are going on within the organisation. Change is a massive one that causes stress for people. So being able to set goals, helping people to achieve their goals, but also helping them to change direction when they need to. There's an organisation that I work with that when I was doing the performance management module of my 12-month programme, they were saying, do you know what, we set goals right now that align with the company goals, and I can guarantee in 6 months' time the company goals are going to change. They're a fast-moving organisation, lots of us have to be, and they are changing, constantly changing, which says to me, you don't need to have a one-year appraisal system then. You need more regular check-ins with your people. You need more regular goal setting. You shouldn't be setting goals so much for a year, maybe set goals for 6 months, and be ready to pivot and make sure that people feel supported in pivoting to what's real for the organisation right now. But we need to recognise that if we keep setting targets and then changing direction, some people are going to feel that they're having the rug pulled from under them and that they don't know what's what, and they will lose engagement. Other people will thrive, but we need to recognise the people who struggle with that constant change, and then we need to be supporting them and helping them, communicating with them about what's coming up. We also need to be encouraging eliminating working lunches and encouraging people to really take their daily breaks, encouraging people to take lunch, encourage people to take walk-in lunches, go for a walk at lunchtime, get some exercise, maybe have walk-in meetings so that we're not always sat down. In training that I ran last week and the week before, one of the first exercises I did was I got people to go for a 30-minute walk and pair up and talk about a particular issue. And we all came back and it was like, I feel like I've had a break. You've still been working, but you can get a sense of having a break just by working in that way instead of constantly just sitting low energy, helping people to improve their energy levels. But really, we do need to be encouraging people to take breaks, to not be working late at night, or if they are, to make sure that they don't start until later the next day. And we need to be supporting healthy working practices across the organisation. Another cause of burnout is a lack of control, or a perceived lack of control. So people who feel that they have no control will feel more demotivated. They may be micromanaged. Micromanagement is really interesting because I know managers that I've met who say they don't micromanage, and then you talk to the teams and they do micromanage. So we need to make sure that managers are aware of what that looks like and how to avoid it, and how to give people the autonomy that they need to actually feel engaged. And Dan Pink is a social psychologist, I think. I'm probably not getting his job title right, but he talks about how we give people autonomy, mastery, and control to keep people motivated. And when people have a sense of autonomy and a sense of control, they have less experience of burnout because they have that sense of being able to control what they do and where they focus their attention. So allowing people to manage and set their own schedules and their own goals, helping them if their planning is not quite right so that they are making that manageable, having regular updates with people, but actually being hands-off, letting people get on with their jobs, be hands-off with it. My only good manager, on her first day at work, she said to me, "What do you need from me as a manager?" And I was like, "Oh, brilliant. Here's my shopping list of what I want from a manager." She said to me, "For me to give you that, this is what I need in return." And it basically set expectations. It built trust between us. She was saying to me, "I'll give you the autonomy you want. I'll give you the projects you want, but any obstacles, any help you need, anything that I need to know, you come and you let me know immediately. If there are any surprises that come and bite me, then we will go back to a different working practice. And I loved it, really happy with that. So making sure that you're giving people a level of control that they're happy with. Other people don't want that much autonomy that I want. Other people want a bit more hand-holding, and that's great. But your managers need to understand that. They need to understand the needs of their people and then deliver that. Another thing that causes burnout is a sense of a lack of reward or recognition. Now, paying someone what they're worth is an important way to reward them for their work, but so is communicating to people that it matters what they do. And when we don't acknowledge people, and when we don't acknowledge their input, or if we give that broad brush, thanks for your efforts today, see you again tomorrow, meaningless, utterly meaningless. People need to have that sense of recognition. Something that I teach managers in my management program is very much about how we show people our appreciation of them by understanding how they experience appreciation. Because for some people, being told that they've done a great job, that's how they experience appreciation. For other people, having quality time with their boss, that's how they experience appreciation. For others, having people help them out, that's their sense of we're all in this together, and that's a feeling of appreciation. So we need to understand how people feel appreciated and then show our appreciation in a way that's meaningful to them. I recently spoke to somebody who works in sales, and he said the culture in his department is very much competitive, and we were doing training on conflict management, and he said it's very competitive and basically they all get pitted against each other. That kind of culture and environment can lead to burnout. It can lead to people becoming so disengaged that they will just leave. Your good people will leave. It's a real 20th century approach to the workplace, whereas our managers need to be taking a 21st century approach and looking at how do I give people autonomy, mastery and purpose in their role, and how do I show appreciation and gratitude in a way that's meaningful to my people. Another thing that causes burnout is poor relationships in the workplace. So having a sense of belonging, really necessary for our mental health and our well-being. This is true at work as much as it is in the rest of our life. When we went into the very first lockdown in 2020, research was showing that people's brains were actually shrinking from being in isolation and being in so much solitude. People who lived alone, their brains were actually shrinking from that lack of interaction with other people. Connection with others, having social connections at work is really important. A lot of that is being lost in organisations where people are working from home, where we are all looking after each other and looking after ourselves, but we're not having those social interactions. We also don't get a sense of team identity. And for anybody who's changed jobs in the last 2 years, it's very hard to get to know your colleagues on a personal level if your work environment has been mostly working from home. It's also very hard to get a sense of how they respond to you and to get a sense of the culture of the organisation if you've joined a company and you've just been working from home, working remotely. So research has shown that when we have friends at work, we have significantly higher levels.
Molly, I'm trying to order and it's not allowing me. And the last time I ordered PPE was long time.
Can somebody mute that person? I can't mute them. Thank you, Zoe. So yeah, that lady did sound rather stressed. So having friends in the workplace, having people who we can trust, research shows that we have significantly better stress management techniques when we have that sense of relationship at work. So the opposite is true. Poor relationships can lead to burnout. So as employers, we need to be providing opportunities for people to meet. We need to be providing opportunities for social occasions. We need to be providing a space where people can connect around non-work related topics. I think lots of organisations are using volunteering as a way of building more inclusive cultures, getting teams together to go and volunteer together and do something that's less competitive and more cooperative. It's been very hard to create that sense of social inclusion in the workplace. I think as we move forward this year, people will be going more into a work environment, a shared workspace, and it's important that we have those social aspects when people are in their shared workspaces. I don't think many people are going to go back to 5 days a week unless the job requires it. So there are certain industries where absolutely, and Marshalls is one of them, where you do have to be there to do your job. But there are other industries where you don't have to be there to do your job. And I'm hearing people saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do 2 or 3 days in the office and 2 or 3 days at home. Making sure we have that social aspect for those people, really, really important. And then some very pandemic related specific things that are causing burnout. So while lots of people think they're being or feel they're being more productive working from home, others are really starting to get stir crazy. And I remember when I first went self-employed in 2009, I think it was after about a year or so, the only people I was seeing during the day were my therapy clients. And I got to a point at one point where I was like, I can't do this anymore because I was not getting the social interaction that I needed. I was feeling really hemmed into the workplace. Didn't help that I was wearing jeans all the time, so I wasn't dressing for work and I wasn't getting a sense of energy that comes from that as well. So there is a risk of burnout from people working at home all day, every day. And there's a survey by monster.com that found 69% of employees are experiencing burnout symptoms while working from home. Oops. So we need to be addressing that. Then the way to address that, talk to your people, find out who's happy in the workplace working from home, who really, really, really wants to get back to a shared work environment. Put in place contingency plans for future disruption. We've had enough of these disruptions going on over the last year that we should have plans now for dealing with, okay, in the event of another lockdown, this is what we're going to do. This is how we'll support our people. Buddy people up for working activities. Encourage people to walk to work even when they work from home. So when I first went self-employed, I remember my old training manager rang me and I said, I'm just walking to work. And she said, what do you mean? You work from home? I went, yeah, but I go for a walk around the lakes every day so that I get that sense of I've left home, I'm going to work, I'm at work. And at the end of the day, if I felt up to it, I would do the opposite or I'd do a shorter walk. But just making that transition and that sense of making a difference from home and work so that we're not blurring the boundaries too much. Encourage people to get outside, encourage people to have walking meetings. And then because the boundaries are getting blurred, that work-life balance is really getting lost, I think. Lots of people are working evenings, working longer hours. They get more interruptions, they've got children, they're focusing on them, and then they're working longer to try and make up that time. So encouraging people to promote work-life balance, encouraging people to know how to set boundaries, but then actually accepting those boundaries when they set them. Having managers who set the expectations by actually not sending emails at 11 o'clock at night. Having managers who are managing people's holiday entitlements so we don't get to December again and have people taking 3 weeks off. Having supportive conversations with people who are burning the candle at both ends and find out what's going on for them. And I know some companies who now have a policy where they turn their email servers off at a certain point. and emails cannot be sent after something like 9 o'clock at night. And I think in Germany, that's quite a normal culture where emails do not get sent at certain times of night. But encouraging, having those practices that encourage people to have balance and have boundaries, and then accept those boundaries when they let you know they exist. These are all important ways that we can avoid burnout. So that's me talking a lot. Just before I hand over to Jo, I would just like to say today is Time to Talk Day. This used to be run by an organisation called Time to Change, and they stopped doing that last year. So it's now run by Mind and Rethink Mental Illness. But Time to Talk Day, the first Thursday in February, we encourage everybody to talk about their mental health. Personally, I encourage everybody to talk about it every day of the year. But if we can get people talking openly about their mental health and well-being today and every day, then you will be identifying those potential people who may be heading for burnout, and you'll be able to deal with it much more quickly. So I am going to hand over to Jo now, and then we'll take questions at the end after Jo's. So stop sharing this. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you, Jackie. Can someone show my slides? I have some issues in that I only know how to use Teams for presentations, so it's all good fun this morning. Thank you. So morning, everybody. I'm Jo Boyd, for those of you that don't know me. I work for an organisation called Marshall Skills Academy. So that's as of this week. So we were formerly Marshall Centre. We rebranded on the 1st of February ahead of the rest of the business rebranding. So we are part of the Marshall Group that most people from the area would have heard of. So yeah, we're all about to go for a rebrand, but we've got an important announcement coming out tomorrow, I believe. So we've gone first ahead of that, to avoid confusion. Okay, so much like Jackie, you know, I've got a very similar background to Jackie, actually. Lots and lots and lots of years of experience in HR, good, bad and indifferent. And also trained as a therapist and have a huge interest in mental health. And like Jackie, there's a sweet spot, like Jackie was saying, between, you know, what goes on in the workplace and people, and how can you make it so people are having a better time at work, they're able to develop, release their potential, and that the managers facilitate that, not block that, which is often what we see, unfortunately. So yeah, so very similar backgrounds. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the same sort of subject that Jackie's talked about. She's touched on a few of the points I'll cover, but it's more about how we work. So I'm going to go over a few things to consider as we kind of return to the office. So if you haven't already returned to the office, what could that look like? If you have, there might be some things that you might not have considered and you might want to go back and have a think about. But you know, what we want to do is, if you've got people that haven't been in the office, say, for 2 years, you don't want to bring them in and cause anxiety just by doing that. If they've stayed away for 2 years and they're still wearing masks, and I work with people like this, that's for a reason. You know, issuing a diktat that says you will come back to work, even if it's 1 day a week, will be incredibly stressful. So how can we work with people to make sure that we're not doing that? And actually, when they come to work, what are they doing? How does it make sense? You know, if they've been working in their kitchen for 2 years, how do you justify getting them back in the office? And some people will see that as counterproductive. So we'll look at that and look at the things that we've had to think about at Marshall, about how we take this forward. What is the new way of working? It's very unlikely we'll go back to how we were before. And if we did, that could be detrimental to our business. So there's a few things we need to think about. So Harvard Business Review, they did a recent article. They claim 80% of employees would like to continue working from home at least some time of the week. Okay, so I guess the other 20% are probably quite extreme extroverts. or leaders. You do see this with leaders. They want some sort of, you know, if you're in the office, they can see what you're doing. They've got an element of control. But 80% of employees. So if you're not allowing that in your business, you could lose up to 80% of your people, potentially. And we've seen the great resignation where people aren't getting what they expect from work. They're not being treated how they feel they should be at work. And they're opting out. Life is too short. Post-pandemic, people will see what is important to them. They've had time to think about it. They won't put up with it anymore. So we really need to be embracing new ways of working and not considering just going back to how things were. So like I say, you might have already tackled it, but if you haven't, hopefully here's some tips and things for you to think about that might help. Okay, next slide, please, Jackie. Oh, I feel like Boris Johnson now, but that's probably not a good person to relate to. But,
it's Zoe doing it, not me.
Oh, is it Zoe? Yeah. Sorry, Zoe. Thank you. So 2 years of disturbance. Looks like we are finally getting to that point where new ways of working are going to be starting to be embedded. You know, we've been in, we've been out. It's been a bit like the hokey cokey. There are some parts of businesses, so we have that where the hangars, you know, where they're working on the aircraft, that they have been in work. So it's important you don't leave these people out if you're looking to adjust working, because actually there might be different ways that they can work post-pandemic. And there might be things that they've had to do during the pandemic that they found actually to be beneficial. So we often talk about office workers, but it's important to think about those who aren't office-based, but perhaps can benefit from some fresher thinking and some of the lessons we've learned from the pandemic. Whatever we do, you know, we have to do with caution. People have been productive, although, you know, they weren't initially at the beginning, they weren't really working from home. They were working in a pandemic, which is slightly different. But we're getting to this point where we're actually working from home, where people have the tools, the equipment and the knowledge to do that really effectively. And so rightly, there will be some kickback as to coming back into the office on a full-time basis. Like I say, some of your extroverts might already be in the office. They would have found every excuse to come in and meet people for coffee and go for walks, and, you know, they would crave that time. Like Jackie says, work is where we socialise. You know, in the days gone by, where we've seen a bit of a revival of community, but for a long time that's been lacking, and social interaction largely comes from work. That's where we look for it. So us extroverts will quite happily get in the office when we're told we can. But those introverts will actually be really quite anxious, and they will not want to come back into work readily. They'll need some sort of logical reasoning as to why they need to come in. Why do they need to come into you know, very often we have open office spaces where it's quite noisy, there's a lot of hubbub. So for an introvert, why would they want to come back into that environment and battle trying to work with other people who drain their resources? So how we do that so it makes sense. We need to create new routines, but they do need to make sense. Some businesses, you know, we saw at the early beginning of the pandemic, some vowed never to go back. You know, they sold their offices, they cleared out of London, will never go back. But that's equally as damaging. That's damaging for your extroverts. How do they bond with people? How do you build connections? How do you work together really effectively? So, you know, it's not one or the other. And the trend really is towards hybrid working. But what does that mean? You know, hybrid working, for me, it's far more than you're in the office for some days and you're at work for some days. You have to really think about, what are you doing on those days? What are you doing in those places? And for me, I think it's a much better approach to call it activity-based working. Then it does what it says on the tin. You can start to think about what you do and where it is appropriate to do that. It's where it makes sense to come back into the office. So planning the time. I had a conversation with someone about 6 months ago, not from my organisation, and they said, I just can't understand why I'd need to go back to the office. I've got to travel, so that's my time. I'm going to work in a noisy space, and I like to be able to focus. So it's just going to take up time, and I'm going to be less effective. So I'm going to get less done in more time. It just doesn't make sense. So I said to them, you're thinking about it in the wrong way. When you go into the office, that's investment of time. How are you investing that time? Use that time appropriately. It's an investment. Spend it wisely. Plan it. Plan to meet those that the piece of work you're working on could really do with some face-to-face. Plan to spend some team time together to reconnect. Don't go into the office and sit at a desk and answer emails. That is ineffective. So plan that time where working makes sense when you're together. And she said, and she just kind of thought for a moment, and I thought she was going to come back, and then she went, that makes complete sense. I hadn't thought about it as an investment of time. I just saw it as a waste of time. So when we're asking people to come back in, let's make sure it's not a waste of time. Let's not just get them in a desk in the corner trying to battle the noise of the office to do the same job. So we do need this more balanced approach. You know, we miss out so much. Jackie was talking about social connection. We miss out so much. We're missing out on those water cooler chats and corridor chats, you know, or bumping into someone in the canteen or moving between meetings. That the minute the information you get that you wouldn't get, that somebody wouldn't dial up Teams or Zoom to let you know, or they wouldn't call you to let you know. It's that stuff that's important that we're missing out on. You know, I bumped into some people last week that I haven't seen for 2 years that I used to work with daily, you know, and it's, you kind of forget about them, but it's so lovely to see again. So really start to think about that. So the workplace really is, it's a social anchor for your workforce. Okay, you build connections. That's where they're going to learn. You know, how do new people learn? They come into the organisation, they're remote from everybody. How are they learning? There's loads of stuff they're not picking up. How do your less experienced employees, your newer people, you know, your more junior people, your apprentices, early careers, how do they learn if they're at home, remote? So think about these things. And innovation, collaboration, you know, you need to get together in a room sometimes to do this. So these are the kinds of activities that should be going on if you're coming back into the workplace. And this will help with attraction and retention of talent. So what would be really stressful is, as I said before, is just to ask people to come back in to work in a way that makes no sense anymore. So especially those that, you know, if you employed them during the pandemic, they've may never have been in the office. They might not know where it is. They might not know where they're supposed to sit or what they're supposed to do. So the best way is to bring people back together, reconnect people, and work up some kind of team charter where they agree how they want to work going forward. You know, is it everybody comes in on a Wednesday and then you do your team activities on a Wednesday and your one-to-one meetings on a Wednesday? So that way you're building a new routine, but one that makes sense, one they can plan around. And if you agree, you know, this goes back to what Jackie was talking about, autonomy and power and control, you know, giving people some say in what happens next is really important for them to accept what happens next. We're going through change again. It might be change in a different direction, but we're not snapping back to what we know. So making sure we're involving people in that. So agreeing what you will do, what activities do they need to work together on? What days will they do that? What activities do you stay remote? And actually some of those, what Jackie was talking about, you know, bringing in rules. We're not going to send emails past 6 o'clock. So we're not going to, if someone sends an email at 6 o'clock, there's no expectation to reply. We're going to take a lunch break. if we are working remotely, we're going to have virtual coffees. We set up some virtual water coolers, you know, to have those quick conversations and pass information that you wouldn't normally do. But if we're going to do that, we need to make sure we've got the appropriate working space. Oh, I've moved on. Sorry, please. I'm moving on. Thank you. You know, if we've got the right working space to do that, you know, you can't ask people to go and sit at a desk and then work collaboratively. So making sure we've got the right working space, and this is something we're really working on at the moment. And you need a mixture of space. It's not all about collaboration. You need small meeting space. You need space for people who may be involved in projects that are running a Teams or a Zoom call that day. So they need some sort of booth to operate that in. But you need to make sure that it's not somewhere people can hide. So maybe making these spaces bookable. I'm a bit of an anti-hot desker, have to admit. I think that causes stress for people. I think you're much better off having something like a shared space. So maybe Fred has it on a Monday and June has it on a Wednesday, but they share that space. So June knows where she's going to sit, and she might have a couple of personal items that make her connect with the workplace. But don't, you know, for me, it's not about making people fight for the best desk every day. That is very stressful. And when someone sits at someone else's space that they do actually manage to get every week, it causes a lot of undue anxiety. It's just unnecessary. So yeah, not a hot desk fan. But you can, there are lots of apps that can help with desk booking, space booking. One that I came across was called Wiggle, to help facilitate that. So it isn't a free-for-all. You can plan ahead, and like I say, maybe consider having agreed sharing. So making sure you've got the right space to do what needs to be done in the office. And the other thing is, you know, if you're inviting an introvert in and you've got a team meeting or a team space, actually have some space that they can still effectively work when they are working alone. So you might, one of the things we've talked about is having, you know, the open space for the extroverts who want to make a bit of noise and talk to people, but maybe having some sort of library space for quieter working, focused working. So we're no longer working by department. We might be working by project, or we might be working by preference. And it's a really different approach, but it's one that will make sense to people and encourage them back to work. You know, if I'm an introvert and I'm coming in and I'm thinking I've got to go into, and I've got to fight for a desk, and I'm going to be listening to people talking about EastEnders, that's going to stress me right out. So, but if I know I can come in and there's a space I can get some focus and I can cut out some noise if I need to, then absolutely. But don't ask me to do that for 8 hours a day, because I might as well stay at home. But if I've got an hour or two and I need it, it's there. Okay. And when people are working virtually still, think about how that's going to work. Okay. So there's benefits to both. It's not one or the other. Okay. Next slide, please, Zoe. And then you need the tools to make this happen. You know, if you haven't got the right tools, or people don't understand the tools. So like I've had this morning with Zoom, if people don't understand the tools, you know, I had a last minute, oh, we're on Zoom. I always use Teams. I can present in Teams all day long, could do all the fancy tricks. Zoom, oh no, what am I doing? I don't know how to work this. So, you know, people coming into your business, you may have all the great tools and software, but do people know how to use it? So how to use it properly and confidently, because they become barriers. One of the things that we've already brought into some of our space is you get it's like CCTV, internal CCTV. You can run a meeting and people can attend virtually, so it will follow the speaker. So you're getting the best of both worlds. And it's really important that you take an online approach first. What you can't do is disadvantage people that actually, if there is a team day on a Wednesday, but they haven't been able to attend for whatever reason, that they're excluded. We can't do that anymore. We need to make sure that they are still included. Or if someone can't, you know, if they're isolated or for whatever reason. And the great thing about technology is we can record it as well. So anyone that's not attended doesn't have to miss out. So, you know, gone are those days that if you're not physically in the room, you don't get to attend the meeting. You need to think about how everybody is included. And I can see going forward, there'll be some cases if that doesn't happen, where people are excluded for whatever reason. So yeah, making sure you've got the right kind of tech. Like I say, you've got cameras that can follow around the room and follow the speaker. One of the online tools we learnt to use was Jamboard. I don't know if anyone, I know Jackie, you use Jamboard, don't you? Love Jamboard. And it's a great private space for groups of people. So we use it for Q&As and all kinds of things. If people are frightened to speak up, or they've got something a bit controversial they want to raise, it's anonymous. So it's like a flip chart with post-it notes, but it's only for groups of people. So it's quite secure. It's not just left in a room somewhere. So that's something we really adopted in our business, and we will continue to use. You know, just because we go back to the office doesn't mean we stop using all these great tools. And it's free and it's really easy to use. So if you don't use Jamboard, have a good look at it. And I've used it with a couple of businesses in the last couple of weeks. I've never used it. I found it really good fun as well. So, you know, have a look at that. But like I say, the tools and training, really important as well. You know, you can't just say we have all of this. People often, you know, unless they've been using it for a while, might not know how to use it. And they might not want to say, you know, they might not want to look stupid. That can cause real anxiety, you know, real anxiety. And final slide, please, Zoe. So finally, just some final do nots, because these are things that we're very aware of happening in some businesses. So whatever you do, you know, whether you decide to just do what your own thing or do something very different, it's really important that you don't say that you are something you are not, especially when you're attracting candidates. So, you know, I talked about a team charter, asking people how they want to work, what they feel the appropriate priorities are and how they might do that. But don't ask their opinion if you've already decided what you want. If you've already decided that they're coming in 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, don't ask them. It's not great, but it's better than being asked and ignored. Okay, don't pretend to something you're not. Equally, don't say you offer hybrid or flexible working if, again, you want people in 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. If you're not happy with people coming in later because they've dropped their kids off at school and still going home earlier because they need to go and pick them up and they're going to work in the evening. If you're not happy with that, don't say that you are. People have got used to working in a way. I've got someone that he's working in a way that actually is a day off in the week and works a Saturday. It works with his part of the business. It's not a problem, but some businesses would hate that. So, you know, if you're not open to it, don't say that you are. And whatever you do, if you do have a mixture of people working from home and people working in the office, don't treat them differently. Make sure they're all included for lots of reasons. It won't be good for anybody. Whichever way the balance tips, that perceived lack of fairness will really damage your culture and your business. So don't do it. Find a way. Okay, that's it. That's me. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, everybody. I think now we're open to questions. Is that right? Yep.
Yep, that's my understanding. So has anybody got any questions? Have we been so clear? And everyone's got loads of ideas. Is there any in the chat? Nothing there?
No.
I don't have a question, but I have a kind of talk around, which is that we are hoping to invite our team back after half term. We're a small team. There are 16 of us, and we have been working remotely for 2 years. Half of us joined in those 2 years, so we're a very new team. And Joe, your presentation couldn't have been more timely, because I'm starting to think about how how we do that and how we work together going forward. And that notion of, you know, those first few days being back, not about having an agenda and just being together. The days that we have very occasionally spent together, it has been quite awkward because you don't know whether to talk or to work, or because we've never been together naturally. It's quite bizarre. So I would welcome any thoughts or tips on how to do that gently and appropriately.
Yeah, I think it is about, I think you're right, it's getting in with I think the agenda is, how do we want to work together? But some team build activity would really help to know each other a little bit, you know, and break down some of those barriers. And I get that awkwardness, because there will be some people who are used to each other and have worked together, and then some people who aren't. And they're like, well, I don't know my role in this team. I don't know who I am, what my identity is with this group of people. And actually, I don't know how this group of people act. I don't know what the norms are for this group. So you need to, but that gives you for the new people, it gives you a blank canvas. And for those that have been working together, of course, that's changed for them too. So yeah, some team build activity, and then working towards how do we agree to work together? Take this forward.
And there's definitely around something about accepting that we won't be, I'm going to say this and kick myself, but we won't be as productive as we are right now. I mean, I would never have dreamed of having 7 meetings in a day before COVID, and yet that's my diary now, and that isn't possible. When I'm in the office, it will be about conversations and really completely changing how we work again, I guess.
And maybe maybe productivity will come in a different way.
Yes.
So are those 7 meetings in a day really productive, or are they just 7 meetings in a day? So how we measure productivity and the output, maybe that would be different, but you will get to a level of similar productivity when you're back in the room and you've all got to know each other and how to work together. And the things that you lack from not being together, the things that you don't know that other people do know, you're less productive when you're trying to find answers to things that if you could just turn to a colleague and go, does anyone know this? So much easier and so much quicker. So there will be different, productivity will be different. Sure.
Yeah. And I think the opportunity is that, you know, and I think, and yeah, I know what you're saying. You probably couldn't find the different words, Kelly. It's again, for me, it's about, think of the time you spend together as investment. You invest in each other. You're investing in your relationships with each other. You're investing in how you learn from each other and collaborate. So what you may become less productive in terms of churning out stuff like a production line, but you should be able to breed more innovation, more creativity, more connection, and be able to then work. You know, if you ever come to a position where you work under pressure, you'll kind of just get on with it. So it's an investment in the longer term. I think productivity is very short, near-term thinking, and it's very much, you know, get that out now, but that doesn't really breed change and growth and develop people. So I think you see investment in those things, it doesn't feel quite so ineffective.
Yeah, I think what I meant was, you know, from the 21st of February, the days that I plan to be in the office, I have to now not book online meetings on those days. I have to be available for the team and to just accept that those days are going to be a different kind of day.
Yeah, it's just planning around it, isn't it? So having days at home where you can have, well, to be honest, I can't have meeting after meeting after meeting because it's exhausting, but, you know, but you can do that online. And then making sure the team stuff, so think about some of the team stuff that you might have done online before, how you take that back into the office and take that off of Teams.
That's really helpful, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Nearly at 11. I'll hand over to Zoe. I hope you've got close.
Thank you both, that was really good. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We did record the session, as I said, so we do have a Chamber YouTube account. Cambridgeshire Chambers of Commerce. It'll be uploaded on there. If you think anyone from your work needs to hear any of the stuff today, or you want to send it out to anyone that couldn't make it, then the link, it will be up there later, so you'll be able to send them the link. But if you need me to email it to you, I can do so. Just let me know. All right, we'll let you all go 1 minute early.
Oh, there's a couple of things in chat. Oh, it's just thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Well,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you. Lovely to see everybody.
Bye.
Bye.